Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you're finally here this evening. I'm so glad you enjoyed the story of The Ghost Stadium by Tom Palmer, but we are finally here to conclude a third part of the story. So I'm glad you have learned some characters like Irfan, Jack and Lucas have been camping in the old stadium during summertime. So, therefore, I'd like to conclude the story of Ghost Stadium by Tom Palmer. So, that's time to finish the story. We're on chapter 23, Into the Dark, on page 54. It was not easy to walk down the players' tunnel and understand. Ivan shone the torch into the void. The darkness came alive as the light made the fragments of wood and metal cast shadows on the walls. Then something moved. The rabbit, its eyes lifted up pink. It ran towards them, then spun and headed back the way it had came. Lucas breathed in. "Come on," he said. He could hear his own voice wobble, and the two boys entered the black void beneath the main stand, with no idea of what would happen next. Just sure it was the right thing to do. There's only one corridor under the main stand. It ran a full length of a stand, with rooms of it every 10 meters. Its white breeze block walls were covered in strange brown stains, making shapes that sprang to life in Lucas' mind. Monsters, ghosts, demons. He's played terrible tricks on him as rubbish, dead leaves, and branches crunched under his feet. They made them shine a torch into each and every room. Both of their hearts were pounding hard. Both felt sick. But it had to be done. They had to find Jack. The first room they came to still had a sign on the door. Away dressing room. Ivan cast the torch around the room, his eyes half closed, with a fear of what they might find there. The torch shone under the benches, into the shelves, nothing there. The next door was a referee's room. It was half closed. Lucas pushed it open, forcing a load of dead leaves and plants out of the way. The torch beam reviewed it only heaps of twigs and soil. Then Lucas put his hand on Ivan's arm. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Ivan jumped and turned the beam of a torch of the way they had came. "What?" The corridor was empty, apart from the awful shapes on the wall. "Upstairs," Lucas said. "He's upstairs." "Do we go up there?" Ivan asked. Lucas nodded. "Let's check the home dressing room first, just to be sure he's not on this floor now. Then we'll go up." Ivan nodded. They moved on, and next door, the third room, both of them sick, with nerves. They were both asking themselves why they hadn't just run for it. But deep down, they both knew they owed it to their friends to stay. Lucas reached out to grip the door handle. The handle to the home dressing room was stiff. Lucas had to twist hard to force it open. It made a loud crack that echoed up and down the inside of a football stand. Then there was an echo from inside the room, or in a second noise. Lucas couldn't be sure. He looked at Ivan. Ivan nodded. Lucas pushed the door. Ivan cast the torch beam slowly around the room. Along the floor, at first, it stiffened, bursting out in a dozen places. But there were no leaves on the floor, only pipes and patches of animal droppings. 2 or 3 mice, or maybe rats, skittered away in different directions, just as the torch beam caught a pair of trainers. Ivan jerked the beam upwards, a pair of legs, a white t-shirt, a face. Then a beam shone straight into the pair of black eyes. Jack's eyes. Lucas and Ivan flinched back the second they saw him, but Jack did not move. He just stared at them. Ivan kept the light on their friend. The smell of burning came again. It was so toxic they could hardly breathe. Then Jack's mouth began to move. This time, Jack didn't need to grip their wrists or twist them to the floor. It was enough that black eyes were fixed on them. They were going nowhere, and they knew it. We've got to get out of here. He knows I know. I've hidden the hard drive. Lucas and Ivan glanced at each other. It was that weird voice again. Not Jack's. It was the voice whoever or whatever had taken over his body. I've hidden the hard drive. Not Jack said. What does he mean? Lucas asked. I don't know, Ivan whispered. I can hear voices. I can hear them talking, not Jack said. Lucas swallowed. This was the most terrifying situation he had ever been in. He didn't know if they'd survived in this night, but deep inside, he knew what had to do. They had decided not to run away. They had to come rescue Jack, and that was what they had to do. In the back of Lucas' mind, he could hear a roaring sound like water, and the temperature was going up fast. It's us you hear talking, Jack, Lucas said. He tried to keep his voice steady. He didn't know if all these sounds and feelings they were experiencing were real, or part of his haunting or possession, or whatever it was. It's me and Avon, he said. I can hear them. Not Jack said. I heard the hard drive in the massage table, and not in the office. They'll try and burn the hard drive. What hard drive? Ivan asked. I can still hear them, but it's too quiet. What hard drive? Lucas shouted. Jack twitched, but his eyes stayed on them, black and shining and deep. It has all I need to get the chairman ousted, he said. Lucas almost smiled. It was working. The thing inside Jack was talking on them. We deal with it, I promise. Ivan said. He had to shout above the grown foot noise. There were cracks, snaps. A roaring like a tsunami wave was about to break over them. We'll deal with it. Irfan said again. Jack looked at them. Can I trust you? Will you see it through? You can trust us, Tommy, Lucas said. Now he knew who it was he really speaking to. We will see it through. Then two things happened at once. Jack collapsed. His eyes went white. Then they closed and his body slumped on the tiled floor. And there was a crash. The ceiling above them began to turn black, and then there was a blast of heat as fire engulfed the building. Burning wood and brick burst through the ceiling and smoke filled their lungs. The heat was unbearable. Lucas and Irfan leaped over the massage table and grabbed Jack. They pulled him off the floor and dragged him into the exit. The corridor was lit by flames so the boys could see to find a way back to the players' tunnel and into the open air. They dragged Jack out onto the overgrown pitch. They froze at the sight before them. The top half of the stand they had just been inside was in flames. As it collapsed, bright embers of smoke billowed high into the night sky. They could just hear the noise of a fire engine sirens above the roar of a fire. Lucas almost collapsed with relief. They were not going to be alone for much longer. Help was on his way. Then Jack's body went stiff again. The hard drive, he said, in that voice again. Lucas looked down at him. His eyes were back. The black eyes? As Lucas leaped back, Irfan cried out. Jack's hands were around his throat. The hard drive. Lucas jumped on top of Jack and tried to pull his hands from Irfan's throat. But Jack was too strong. His strength was not human. The hard drive, he shouted again. As Lucas pulled, he saw panic in Irfan's eyes. The light seemed to be drowning away from him. Lucas punched and kicked Jack, but he had no effect. Jack was strangling Irfan, killing him. Get the hard drive, that voice said again. And Lucas realised that he had to retrieve the hard drive from a massage table in the home dressing room. That was the only way to stop Irfan being strangled, to save Jack from to the fin that had possessed him. Lucas turned to face the main stand. The fire was everywhere now, reaching out to set the other stands on fire too. Glass smashed and stonework fell. It was a scene from hell. But Lucas had to go back in there. If he didn't, then both his friends could die. Lucas ran into the players' tunnel and under the stand before he could think the better of it. He knew the floor above was burning. He knew the ceiling could collapse at any moment. But he also knew he had to get the hard drive. If he didn't, he couldn't even think about that. As he turned left to enter the home dressing room, Lucas saw that we had been a black void a few minutes ago was now a bright wall of flame. The ceiling at the far end of the stand had collapsed. Dark grey smoke was pouring along the top half of the tunnel towards Lucas, drawn to the clear air, but if he kept low, the air was clear. He had only seconds. He ran. As he reached the door to the home dressing room. He could feel intense the heat of the flames at the end of the stand. Was it too late? Without a second's pause, Lucas darted into the dressing room. As he tried to rip the cover off the massage table, he heard creaks and groans and snaps from above. "Come on!" he shouted, angry at himself for taking so long. But no matter how hard he looked, he could find nothing inside the stuffing of the massage table. When the dressing room ceiling caved in, Lucas leaped across the room. It was instinct, and it saved his life. A place where he had been standing the second before was now a heap of burning wood and carpet. Lucas had failed. He knew he had to make for the door now. It was dangerous, too dangerous to wait, but it was only when he was halfway to the place tunnel and safety that he realised he was dragging part of the massage table with him. Instinct again. Maybe he hadn't failed then. Maybe. As he ran under the tunnel, Lucas heard a rip and a crash and felt a wave of heat. Behind him, the stand caved in. The whole structure crumpled and collapsed as the fire swept through it. But Lucas only had eyes for his two friends, but both sitting on the grass beside their tent, both staring back at him. Lucas had barely been aware of the sirens for the last few minutes. It was only now that he really heard them. Fire engines, ambulances, police cars. "We should get out of here," Lucas said. He said it as much to see how his friends would react as to get away from a fire. Ivan nodded. Yes. He stood up and rubbed his neck. Lucas smiled. Ivan had bruises around his throat, but he looked okay. That was good. Very good indeed. But Jack looked dazed. Lucas still wasn't sure. Was Jack? Or was he still that other person? Lucas needed to see his eyes. "Jack," he said, "we should leave. It's dangerous here." Jack carried on, staring at the burning stand. Then he turned to face Lucas. His eyes were bloodshot, but in every other way they were more normal. Lucas smiled again. Jack was back. "Come on," he said. "Let's go." The three boys screamed through the hole they had seen the fox use. They left the massage table on the other side. It was impossible to bring that too. Once they were outside, they could see the emergency vehicle to their left. The flashing lights lit up the old car park behind the stand of a fire, and a huge water hose and a helicopter up high above them added to the chaos. To the right, there was darkness, wasteland, an easy escape from his nightmare. Ivan made to head into the darkness, but Lucas stopped him with a hand on his arm. "What?" Ivan asked. "Why shouldn't run away?" Lucas said. "We should tell them why we're here." Ivan shook his head. "They'll never believe us. They'll think we started a fire. We'll get blamed." Jack stood in silence, leaning on the side of the stadium. they'll see us leaving, Lucas said. They might already have spotted us from a helicopter. We should own up. No, yes. No, Lucas. We'll get the police record. We'll be stuffed. We'll never get jobs. We'll end up in pupil referral unit. There's an ambulance, Lucas said. We need to get Jack seen to. Irfan looked at the ground and sighed. He didn't say anything for what seemed like ages. Okay, he muttered at last. The three boys began to walk towards the emergency vehicles. Lucas told the police the full story of their night as he sat next to Irfan in the back of a police car. Jack was inside the ambulance being treated. When Lucas had finished, the policewoman leading their interview put on her notebook on the dashboard of her car. She turned to them. It's going to be hard to make the story stand up in court, lads, she said. Lucas shook his head. It's true. It's not, son, she sighed. It's crazy. If I didn't know better, I would think you had been taking drugs. She peered into Lucas' eyes. What I don't understand is why you gave yourself up, she went on. Were you scared? Not of you, Lucas said, but yes, we were scared for our friend and for our lives. The policewoman shook her head. Breaking and entering, arson, wasting police time. Should I go on? A second policewoman opened that passenger door and climbed into the car. How's Jack? Ivan asked her. Your friend, he's fine. Just a bit spaced out, but you've got a bigger problem now. The owner of the stadium has just shown up. He doesn't look happy. There was a loud bang as a fist came down on the roof of the police car. One of the police women jumped out of the car. Please, sir, she said. We are dealing with this. But nothing would stop the man. Are these a little gets? He demanded. He was short and grey-haired, wearing a long coat. Lucas knew who the man was. It was Ben Cates, the former chairman and owner of a Yorkshire County FC. Lucas had never liked him. He was one of the posh older men who made everyone else feel like they were rubbish, but not today. Lucas had seen into the mouth of hell today already. A little man like this wasn't going to scare him after that. Sir, the policewoman raised her voice. We have this in hand. They've destroyed my stadium, Ben Cates shouted. Your stadium? Lucas snapped. He opened the door of the car and stood up to confront the older man. You are the one letting this place rot, he said. You are the one demolish it so that you can build a supermarket. This is my stadium, my club. The next sentence was out of Lucas' mouth before he knew it. But as soon as he said it, he knew it was true. You are the one who killed two. Ben Cates broke in with an evil smile. See, over there, he shouted, and pointed at a dark stone building with small windows. What? Lucas asked. That's a youth offender's prison, Cates said. You have a great view of the supermarket when he gets built. I hope you enjoy it. Lucas felt himself being pushed back into the police car, a hand on his head. He knew that what Ben Cates had said was right. He would end up in a young offender's place. There was no way out of this. He could prove that this man had killed Tommy Baird. Who could he show that they had not caused the fire? Then he knew. The hard drive, he said, Tommy's hard drive. Ben Cates' face went white. What? His voice sounded choked, and he glanced around in panic. Lucas turned to the policewoman. Tommy, Baird's hard drive. It's on the other side of that fence. Hidden in a massage table, it proved that Case had a motive for killing Tommy. Lucas looked up at Ben Cates to see how he had reacted to what he had said. But Case was gone. He was racing to the hole in the wall, racing to get there before Lucas. And Lucas knew he couldn't let that happen. Lucas scrambled over Ivan, who was still sitting in the seat next to him with his mouth open as he listened to everything that had been said. Lucas pushed the door open, rolled onto the ground, then went after Ben Cates. 5 years of football frustration drove him on. Come back, one of the police women shouted. Don't make it worse. But Lucas was running. He began to gain on the football club owner. Hard, fast, direct. Lucas heard a siren going off, shouts, a car skidding on the rough ground of a car park. He leaped on front of Ben Cates and dived through the hole. The massage table was where he had left it minutes before. He started to rip at the fabric cover. Lucas had to find the hard drive before Cates or the police stopped him. He looked up for a second and saw that Ben Cates was halfway through the hole in the wall, but he was stuck, too fat to get through. It gave Lucas a time he needed. He had time to rip the cover off, tear the stuffing out of the table. 1 minute, 2 minutes, then he found it. A small black object, a hard drive with information that would change anything. Just 6 months later, Northface Stadium looks like a very different place. The whole city had came together to make it happen. Investors had invested, the builders had built, volunteers had volunteered. At 3 p.m, Yorkshire County VC kicked off their first game for 5 years. They were playing in a lower league, 10 tiers down from the last game they had played, but they were playing, and 30,000 fans had filled the 3 remaining stands to watch them. After Lucas had handed a hard drive to the police, Cates had confessed to the murder of Tommy Baird. His nerve was shot. He had to tell the police everything they had wanted to know. He told them that, for years, he had taken ticket sales and player transfer fees for themselves. He had cheated the fans and the club. The next move he planned was to sell the stadium to the supermarket for millions. But Baird had found some secret emails and had confronted Cates. That was a night Cates had murdered him. The police still did not believe the story about the ghost. But Lucas, Ivan and Jack were only given warnings, not no police records. The fire service proved the fire had started in the old electrical system of the stadium. It was nothing to do with the boys. But Lucas, Ivan and Jack were not in the stadium for this great occasion. They were on a hillside half the mile away, watching the match from there. They'd sworn to each other that night they'd never enter the Northface Stadium again. It was a promise they would never break. The end. So we have now concluded our third final episode of reading our story, Ghost Stadium by Tommy Palmer. So I have glad all of you here have enjoyed our first 3 parts of reading Ghost Stadium. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you so much for watching. Right, if you haven't already, so please subscribe, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit my notification, and don't forget about upcoming contents. And there's a social media links just below the video description. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest and Instagram. Yeah, you can support my additional content and behind the scenes and teaser trailers if you're interested. I'd really appreciate you guys, and like, comment, share and subscribe. Always appreciate it. Okay guys, so I'd like to say happy Halloween and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you really soon.